Well, I've said it on many occasions that I believe Genesis of the Daleks was the absolute best Doctor Who adventure, and I stand by it. Uh, Beyond just being a classic, it's probably the best story for Doctor Who. And it also has one of the best, if not the best, confrontation scene between the hero and villain in the case of the Doctor and Davros. However brief it is, it's just really good and performed so well between the two actors, and so it's quite the treat. So many lessons and all that. I just have nothing but endless praise for it. With the possible exception that the TARDIS does not quite factor into it. So, but other than that, this the absolute best of Doctor Who. So after many other adventures, we kind of, I guess, in a way, is kind of the sequel to Genesis of the Daleks in the form of Destiny of the Daleks. So, and it's also establishing that Davros was not a one-off character who seemingly met his end at the end of Genesis. No, he survives. So the whole plot here, of course, is the Daleks trying to retrieve Davros because they're at an impasse with a new enemy that they're facing that is they're equal in every way in their means of war. And so they're seeking Davros to give them an edge in the fight. And I guess at some level they knew he might have survived, because as it turns out he had some secondary life support system within his, I guess, chair there. And it kicked in when he got zapped by his own creation and was left for dead. But I guess at some means they decided, oh yeah, it's he might still be there. Let's go drag that old corpse out of there, because he was pretty much a corpse to begin with. But yeah, it happens though. But it's like, as mentioned, it's like, I don't know, a couple of thousand years gone by, and they wake him up and all this stuff. So the show is nowhere near as good as Genesis, and that's just, and that's almost an unfair comparison, except that it's impossible not to, because it is like a sequel to that one. The Doctor, thanks to the randomizer, after what happened between him and the Black Guardian, he travels to wherever. He doesn't know where he's going to end up, kind of like the way it used to be. And so he lands on Skaro again, and of course he doesn't realize it at first, and but then he finds out. So other things and elements of the show that are unique to itself is, of course, the introduction of the second Romana, played by Lalla Ward. Obviously, I'm thinking this because she was Tom Baker's girlfriend at the time and soon to be ex-wife. That's romance is fleeting, isn't it? Had to deal with. So I'm guessing when Mary Tamm's contract was up, he wanted Lalla Ward on the show, and they could have just had it where Astra became a second companion, I suppose. But anyway, so they did that. But the Romana character is a time lady, so she can regenerate. And like I said, in my head canon, I'd like to think that she regenerated because she was more damaged by the torture under the shadow than previously thought, and so she had to. Otherwise, keep in mind, this is still dealing with the 12 regeneration cycle, so you don't just regenerate like changing clothes. I mean, they actually presented it like this, like she just kind of liked the way Astra looked and decided, yeah, I'm going to look like that. Copies her completely, even the dress. So it's a bit that's played up for a comedy bit, or the different versions of bodies that she tries on. And with New Who, you can kind of suggest that that's possible, I suppose, and that other Time Lords and Time Ladies are better at regeneration than the Doctor is. Of course, a lot of times the Doctor, again, is in dire straits. He's dying or, severely injured when it happens. This is a lot of times not even conscious while he's regenerating. So, whereas Romana she had time to think about it. And so you get a series of these other women showing up, the first is Astra, then you have a belly dancer, I guess, and a super tall woman, and a little blue alien girl who was actually wearing the outfit from Robots of Death, I believe. It's just a little shorter. And so a lot of people take it to mean, oh, see, Time Lords can regenerate into other alien species or whatever, but I don't know, you could chalk that up to it was just makeup. And I mean, the clothes changed too. Good Lord. It's like the Martian Manhunter or something. But so it's done just for the comedy bit of Tom Baker's reactions to all of that. And then, of course, she shows up in his clothes. So there's a whole other scarf, hat, and coat. And there you go. And it's all done up to be cute and stuff because, So, and so there you go. So it's a new Romana, and off they go. And they land, and apparently K9 has laryngitis. But they just didn't have any work for K9 in this story, which is unfortunate because it would be cool to see K9 take on Daleks and all that. But anyway, so they arrive, and they don't know it's Skaro, but slowly but surely you find out it's a devastated planet, as typical with Skaro after, millennia of warfare. And I guess eventually the Daleks have wiped out the Thals. The last time we saw them, I think it was the Pertwee episode where they were actually chasing the Daleks in space. But maybe the Thals escaped somewhere else. And again, maybe in the comments, if there's some other, novel or Big Finish story that says what became of them. But ultimately, the Daleks is all you got left. And so they've come back, and there's all this evidence of drilling going on. You can hear it, and the earth is trembling and all that. And because they're looking for Devros. Meanwhile, another ship shows up, and this introduces the enemies of the Daleks, the Movellans. Now, there's a lot of aspects about it. The effects they use, of course, by today's standards, and even then, you say, it's just a little toy. But it's not that bad, and it's actually, they have this clever way of how it drills itself into the ground, the hold position, and make itself now a base or fortress, if you will, for them. And so, of course, this explains how the actual set of the ship looks the way it does, because a good chunk of it is underground now. So, it's fine. The Movellans themselves, everything is fine about them. Their outfits and everything looks all flashy and futuristic and stuff, and their weapons look cool. But the wigs. I mean, maybe it was a cheap solution to not, because there was quite a few of them there. And I suppose if they'd had given some kind of helmets or something, it would have been more expensive to make all of those. I just don't know. But of course, thanks to Bo Derek and Rick James, the dreadlock was maybe making a comeback and a popular look at the time. I don't know, but they of course had these silver dreadlock looking wigs. I don't know. I get maybe Rick James was the creator of the Movell. He was the Devros for the Movell. But whatever. Spoiler, turns out they're all androids, even though they look human. But this sets up the basic plot, which is a typical, and it's a pretty good, sci-fi plot, and it works fine, except for a couple of plot holes here concerning the Daleks themselves. But it's basically, there's an impasse, and they're battling out their battles through pure logic, and they're equally matched, so neither one can fully win, and they're stuck, so they're looking for an edge to get out of it. And so, of course, they go to Devros, who is not a machine, so he can think about, some crazy maneuver that could throw off the other side and win. And then the Movellans figure this out too and decide they want to use the Doctor to help them win and all that. Well, the problem here is, of course, the Daleks are not robots. They're mostly machine now, because that's kind of the stupid idea that Davros has, which is very similar to the Cybermen. It's the same idea. The Cybermen remain more humanoid looking, whereas the Daleks are in those, giant salt and pepper shaker machines, and they're just these little blobs inside there. But basically, that's it. They're brains in a bucket, and they're still organic living creatures. However, the way out is in that perhaps they're not mechanical per se, but Davros did create them. He deliberately mutated them through the Khaled DNA, and instead of being human beings, they're these mutant little monsters, and he's literally programmed their thinking and the means and bred them to be this way, and their obsession and pursuit of being the ultimate species of the universe, and eventually the only species of the universe, appears to be their means by which achieving this goal. After that, then what? I don't know. Watch old movies? I don't know. But so it doesn't quite fit, whereas the Movellans, they're androids. I don't know who created them, what. I don't know if there's ever been other follow-up stories, again, novels, comics, Big Finish, what have you, that there might have gotten more of a history of where they came from. Would be a cool thing to revisit with them, especially since, they fought the Daleks to a standstill. So, but gee, that look, the suits are fine, but so yeah, that's a bit of a problem. And the rest of it, the idea of finding Davros and all that, which the Doctor finds him first, the sets don't quite match up to what I would have thought it would look like, and I don't know if there was anything done to revisit what they had at the time to make it fit. But then I don't know who's to say, and what went on in between there. You've got to factor in that the Genesis takes place long before the Doctor first meets the Daleks with Hartnell, and how it looked then, and how everything was so vastly different with what Skaro was like after all that. And how many millennia upon millennia upon millennia has gone in between all of this? Just don't know. And so it's not a big complaint about how the set looked and whatnot. And most of it is just it's just blacked out. It's soundstage studio. They just it's all dark and stuff, and you got things piled around because it's supposed to be this devastated bunker rooms and all that. Even though a lot of it just looks like something like baggage carrier things and stuff like that, but it probably was. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It functions and it's fine. And the outside stuff of the ruins and all that works as well. Of course, there's Daleks love to enslave people because they're pretty useless without hands, which just kind of defeats their whole premise of being the supreme beings. And so you got more of that, and you see some guys wearing a draconian outfit, but I guess they couldn't afford the makeup to make him a draconian, and stuff like that. And then other uniforms you would recognize from previous episodes. But it stands to reason these are people out and about in the galaxy, and they got captured by the Daleks and enslaved. So there you go. Romana is in her cute little doctor outfit because they're dating. So all in all, the adventure aspect of it is fine. And they try to get a new moment between Davros and the Doctor. It's not too bad, but it's nowhere on par with Genesis, of course. But again, the impasse plot is not bad, but it kind of needed to be weaved out. That I guess, like I said, that he did program them to a point. Just they're organic beings, but they're acting like a machine, and the result ends up being the same between them and the Movellans. The other problem for the Movellans is, gee, how do you defeat them? Because they demonstrate they're super strong and all this stuff. Well, all you got to do is grab a battery, flashlight looking thing off their belt. And then it's like they go into diabetic shock or something, collapse onto the ground. It's pretty bad. And despite their super strength, I mean, in the end, the Movellan commander, Romana, has to fight with him because they've got this doomsday weapon about to go off, and he wants to set it off. But he's been attacked. The doctor figured out not just the belts, but if you use sonic weapons like a dog whistle, it disorients them so badly. See, the Daleks never thought of that. So the commander is still functioning, but he's kind of, drunk, he's stumbling around. So Romana's able to take him, but you would think still the strength of his body would be far superior to her own, yet she's able to rip his arm off. And then she finally gets the battery, and he's like, oh, and then you can take the battery and then you can just sort of rearrange a few little components, and then they're your slaves. Yeah, a little too easy. So anyway, of course the good guys win. The slaves are able to get their freedom through the Movellan ship. Davros is captured because he at the end there's the climactic ending of he sends the Daleks on a suicide mission to stop the Doctor, because again if the Movellans get the Doctor, then that defeats the purpose of what Davros's value is to the Daleks, and they're kind of reluctant. That's a good scene too. It's brief, but he's like, he tells them what to do, and they're all sitting there with the bombs strapped to them, and then he's like, "Carry out your orders." But then another problem for Daleks overall is it looks like all is lost. Then the Doctor just tosses his hat over the little eye stick of the Dalek, and he's completely blind. And Davros is to your right. No, don't shoot me. It's a fun scene. And then, of course, another scene. They haven't figured out how to fly yet, so the Doctor gets the high ground basically and laughs at them. They can't reach him, stuff like that. But eventually they did. I think Sylvester McCoy. They finally showed him. Going up the stairs or down the stairs is not going to work. They'll just float up there. So they finally fixed that. But anyway, it's a good little adventure. You finally get to see more or less another Time Lord regenerate other than the Doctor. Well, that's not true. The Doctor's mentor regenerated in Planet of the Spiders, so we got that. It's okay. It's got its problems, like I said, and some plot. The main one, it's not two robots fighting each other. It's not true. And of course, a pale shadow compared to the greatness that was Genesis of the Daleks. But it's kind of unfair because Genesis was just so damn good. So anyway, there you go. Destiny of the Daleks, as we begin kind of the final season of what the look and style of, although there's been several changes in styles over the years for Tom Baker's run, but this will be the final season of the Time Vortex opening, which is still got to be the absolute coolest looking and almost more appropriate looking opening for Doctor Who. But, well, all good things, All right, next up will be City of Death. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.